Hello, everyone. Thank you for watching KETK Plus. I'm your host, Tristen VanBeem, and today we are talking about the possible freeze that could occur later this weekend or possibly sooner. As some of you may have seen, East Texas is expected to have temperatures in the low 30s and 20s with a high chance of rain going into Saturday and Sunday as well. Now, I have lived in East Texas for almost a year now, and if there's one thing that I have learned, it is that our community cares for those around us, including those in the deep East Texas area. Joining me today is manager for the City of Diboll, Jason Arnold, and he is going to explain to me how Diboll plans to prepare for the possible freeze with the icy roads and the harsh conditions as well. Let's go ahead and bring Jason in. How you doing today, sir?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this interview and, talking about how the people of Diboll can prepare themselves for this freeze. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, one thing I always remind people when we're dealing with something like this is that the city, just by the nature of how we operate, we're always ready to respond, right? We have our maintenance and things that needs to be done. But a lot of what a public works department does, a police department, fire department, is they respond, right? They do their best to get ahead of things. But a lot of what we do is we respond. And so we're always ready. Um, the few extra things that we're going to do, knowing that we may get some severe weather this weekend, we'll get kind of the salt materials ready to make sure some of our areas that ice over, steps for public buildings, things like that, just to make sure no one slips. We'll make sure we go and cover all of our pipes, just like everyone should be doing at their house, right? We're going to make sure that all of our towers are full. One of the things that would really hurt a city water system is when you have these big heavy freezes and then things start thawing out. Well, all that water is going underground and it's just kind of an open-ended pipe, and so that'll really affect a city's water storage if you're not prepared for that. So we'll go ahead and make sure all of our water stores are completely full. And then we just make sure we have our people out and about. For example, we'll have our officers patrolling 24/7. They're going to give us an idea if roads start icing over, if there's any problems that way in terms of it would make travel unsafe, those kind of things. And then we do what we can to either mitigate that or let the public know that hey, things aren't safe right now, so make sure you stay at home as long as you can and go that direction. And then what we just try to do as far as letting the public know, everyone's busy, right? Everyone has a million things going on. They don't think of something. We just try to give them a few days heads up when we can that, hey, this bad weather is coming. Just go ahead and double check these things. Make sure that you don't get caught in the middle of it needing something and, really put yourself in a bad spot. And then last but not least, just reminding them that we're there. If they need anything at all, to give us a call and we'll come running.
Awesome. Well, it's great to hear that. Thank you so much for kind of breaking that down. And I just want to ask for my first question. We had those big freezes in 2021 and 2022 where a lot of Texans just weren't really prepared for it. Do you feel that having those freezes in the past has prepared the city of Diboll for what might come this weekend?
100%. So one, I would tell you that City of Diboll fared very well during those storms, probably better than a lot of the other cities. But 100%, as far as standby power, generator power, we've got a pretty robust system in place where we're checking those things all the time, making sure that if power were to go out, we're good. We've put in kind of some backup systems on the water infrastructure side just to make sure that we're going to have the water that we need when we need it, if and when we get into those big leaks and things like that. And just a general mindset, right? We know how serious these things can get very quickly, and again, as I was mentioning earlier, you don't want to be in the middle of these things and then wishing you'd have done a little bit better for in terms of preparation. So we definitely don't take these things for granted. We understand how quickly things can go south, and so we make sure that we are prepared as we can be. That way, we're able to take care of our citizens if they need it.
Great. Well, I'm happy to hear that, and I'm not even a Diboll resident, so I'm sure that they're happy to hear that as well. And I like how in the beginning when you were first talking, you talked about salting the roads and everything. Have you guys already done that? Have you salted these roads, or do you plan to in the next couple days?
No, we'll do it towards the end of the week. One, we'll make sure that the weather, that forecast kind of sticks to what we think it will be. But no, you don't want to do that too terribly early because the stuff will, the more it's driven on, it'll dissipate, and so you'll basically use it, and it wouldn't be you'd lose it, and it wouldn't be very useful. So we'll wait a little later in the week. We have our areas that we know are more prone to it than not. And so again, it's just going to make sure that the forecast sticks to what we're thinking it may be, and then we'll go and very strategically place that salt material out to make sure it's taken care of, or doing the job it needs to do.
Okay, well, thank you for answering that. And I just want to ask, what are some tips that you have for residents regarding, taking care of their pets during freezes, maybe about preventing faucets from freezing, and then also just stocking up on food? What can they do to help keep themselves safe and semi-comfortable throughout these freezing temperatures?
Absolutely. So yeah, so everyone knows, try to cover up your spigots outside. Leaving a faucet dripping overnight isn't going to affect your water bill, not near as much as a leak would affect your pocketbook. So make sure you've got those faucets dripping. A lot of people, like you mentioned, they forget about the animals. If you're not comfortable, they're not going to be comfortable either. So want to make sure that they have shelter and somewhere to get out of the bad weather. And then absolutely food when you're in these situations, especially if the weather gets bad and the roads are unsafe, the last thing you want to do is put yourself in a situation where you have to leave when you wouldn't have otherwise, and then you never know if the grocery stores and those kind of places are going to be open. So, 100%, just make sure your cabinets are stocked, your pantry stocked. Make sure that you can take care of yourself for a few days. That's kind of the general rule of thumb in emergency management is 3 days, right? You should be able to take care of yourself for 3 days without before you can expect help to come. Now, are we expecting this weekend to get that bad? Absolutely not. But it's always just good practice, good strategy to just think through these things in your head, what that would look like. And yeah, use a weekend like this that the weather may be poor, but it's not going to be for a week long. But just kind of a good rehearsal to take care of yourself if and when we have worse weather before this winter's over.
Awesome. Well, I love that advice that you just gave. It's kind of that, expect the best, prepare for the worst kind of mindset. And I really think that's going to help out a lot of people throughout these very cold times. And the next topic I want to
Absolutely.
go into that is probably the most dangerous one is driving. Now, I know you probably should stay home if you can, if let's say you've already stocked up on food, but some people just have to drive to work and some people just have to leave their homes. So how fast do you recommend people drive if the roads do end up freezing? How much under the speed limit should they be going?
Yeah, absolutely. So you're right. At the end of the day, people have lives to live, and then God forbid there's some kind of emergency or something. I think the best rule of thumb is if you're going to get out on the roads when it's less than ideal conditions, just give yourself plenty of time to get where you're going. Slow down. Make sure you're seeing everything that is to be seen, um, and just take your time. Be as calm and be as smooth as you can be as you're getting where you're going. And then another rule of thumb is to let someone know where you're going, when you expect to be there, and then giving them a heads up that you made it, just in case you run into some trouble on the way there. But yeah, obviously, in an ideal situation, you're able to stay home and just ride it out. But yeah, again, that's just not realistic for everyone. So if you're out there, just leave early, take your time, get there as safely as possible.
Okay, and then can you also talk more about using space heaters? I know that a lot of people like to use them, but they kind of have a reputation of starting fires. So can you kind of talk about the safest way to use those space heaters in times where we have these cold temperatures?
Yeah, so if you're like me, you don't bother reading instructions on most things, but space
Yep.
heaters is definitely one of those times where you should. What usually gets people in trouble is they're putting them too close to, say, a curtain, too close to bedding, something like that. They're in a situation where maybe a pet or a small child could knock them over. That's typically when people find themselves in trouble with these things. So you definitely want to make sure you're reading the directions. These newer ones, they usually have like an anti-tip device on them. That way, if they were to fall over, they would. Now, again, you don't want to count on that, right? But if you've got an older one that doesn't have that built-in anti-tip device, again, make sure it's not somewhere that could be tipped over, and then make sure it's several feet away. Anything that's flammable. I think that's really the main thing. Sometimes, and you hear about this every year, and it's just extremely unfortunate. People will bring in propane heaters and things like that. Those are not meant for indoors. Extremely dangerous. People lose their houses and their lives yearly over things like that. So make sure we keep those things outside. Stick to the indoor designed space heaters, and yeah, just use them safely.
All right, everyone, we heard it right there. You just heard it from Jason. You do not want to use those heaters that are not meant to be indoors because they can start fires pretty easily and quickly. And I kind of want to pivot more towards specific Diboll questions. So let's say someone's prepared and they've done the best they can to keep their faucets dripping, but their pipes still burst, or maybe they get stuck on the frozen roads. Who in the city of Diboll can they call to help them? What departments do you guys have set up just in case that happens to somebody?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that. So we keep staff on standby 24/7. Obviously, we always have officers patrolling, and so anytime 911 is needed, they're going to be there as quickly as possible. We have 4.7 square miles to cover. We always have two or more officers ready to go, and so they're going to be able to get wherever you need, wherever you're at, very quickly. Now, on the other side, whether it's a water leak or something like that, we always want people to call us first. And there's a reason for that. Sometimes it's going to be on a private side, the customer side, and they will have to call a plumber, but sometimes not. And we don't want them to have that extra bill if it's a problem on our side. So if anyone were to call 936-829 HELP, HELP, we have Public Works employees on standby 24/7, and we're going to come and we're going to take a peek at it. We may be able to get you help get your water shut off. That way, it's not a big leak. Maybe you can wait till the next day, repair it yourself, whatever it may be. But we will respond to every single phone call. We'll come and help any way that we can, and hopefully save you a plumber bill.
Great. I love that you guys are thinking about ways to save people money too, because a lot of times, things can happen during these kind of weather events, and it ends up racking up a lot of money. So I'm sure that the residents watching this really appreciate you, saying that we're going to check and make sure it's not on your end, but we're also going to make sure it's not on the city's end as well, just to make sure they don't get the extra bill.
Absolutely, absolutely. And yeah, like I said, I can't stress enough to call us first. That way, hopefully, we can take care of it, and we don't need a plumber.
Okay, awesome. And then I want to ask, are there any shelters that may be open for residents if the power goes out, or maybe their home just isn't safe enough to stay in during a freeze?
If and when we would ever need to open a shelter in town, obviously we look at the churches to really kind of step in that role first, and we have some of the best churches you could ever find in Diboll, Texas. So we know that that's always a need that will be met if and when the city were called upon for something like that. We have our civic center; it's a very nice civic center, plenty of room. We would use that for a warming shelter or something like that if needed. We typically don't plan those things ahead. We like I said, we have very good, very strong church community who really steps up in these situations. But like I said, we're always ready. Everything's on the table as far as the city's response, so we're going to make sure we take care of Diboll any way it needs to be done.
Okay, great. And then I also want to ask, how can Diboll residents keep up to date on the weather conditions? Do you guys have like a Facebook post that you're going to be doing, or is there like an app they can follow? How can residents keep up to date about the weather going on?
Yeah, so we have found through all these different platforms and all these different mechanisms that are in place that Facebook tends to help us get the word out quicker and more efficiently than anything else. And so, I'm the one who handles it, right? So if there's anything going on, anything that people need to be aware of, it'll be updated quickly. And yeah, so really, if people are paying attention to our Facebook page, and we've got a ton of followers, that's really going to be the most up to date information you could get, especially after hours, anytime in the evenings and on the weekends. When this bad weather is supposed to roll in. So yeah, Facebook City of Diboll Facebook page is the way to go.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, sir. And now I just have one more question to ask, even though after you've given me all this great information, and that is any lasting message that you want to say to residents who may be scared about this freeze coming up? Because as we've seen in the past, a lot of people have gotten in dangerous situations because of this weather. So is there anything you want to say to kind of help calm their nerves a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the reason we're having this conversation on Tuesday is to help avoid any of those situations. The weather's not going to be great, right? But it's not going to be as bad as we've all handled before and came through stronger before. Let's just make sure that we're using this pretty weather on Tuesday and Wednesdays of this week to get prepared for it. Make sure we have our spigots outside covered, and if you don't have the fancy covers that you can get from Ace Hardware, wrap a towel around it. Do whatever you can. Get your faucets to drip overnight while you're in there. Open the cabinets to the that are below the sinks. Just do those kind of things just to be ready, and that way the odds of you having a really critical leak or breakdown are pretty slim. If there's anything that I am confident of, is Diboll takes care of Diboll, and so if somebody's going to need some help, we're going to be there to make sure they get it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, sir, for your time. I really appreciate it. And you just gave some great advice to the residents of Diboll and honestly just Texas residents everywhere who could really use it when these times are coming. I really appreciate your time, sir.
Oh, you're very welcome anytime.